his ass.
The problem is to get the 25th Amendment's harder than impeachment. You have to get 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate.
So what do we do?
Tackle Trump and let him pretend he's president and publicly report that he's going through a health issue and may take over. It literally needs to be something like that. It's that bad.
So Tucker Carlson just absolutely went off on President Trump in a 2-hour video, but it's about a 5-minute stretch of this 2-hour video that particularly went viral, where Tucker Carlson would ask what I believe to be one of the most important questions I've ever heard anyone say, particularly about Trump and his inauguration. Take a listen.
Who do you think you are? You're tweeting out the F word on Easter morning? You'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. So obviously you're mocking the religion of Iran. Okay, if you seek a religious war, that's a good idea. But by the way, no decent person mocks other people's religions. You may have a problem with the theology, presumably you do if it's not your religion, and you can explain what that is. But to mock other people's faith is to mock the idea of faith itself, and we should never mock that, because at its core is the acknowledgement that we are not in charge of the universe. We did not build it. We won't be here at the end of it. We can destroy life. We cannot create it because we are not God. The message of all faith at the biggest picture level is the message in our Bible, which is you are not God. And only if you think you are do you talk this way. But it's not just mockery of Islam. And no president should mock Islam. That's not your job. This is not a theocracy. We don't go to war with other theocracies to find out which theocracy is more effective. We are not a theocracy. And God willing, we never will be, because theocracies corrupt the religion. No, this is a mockery not just of Islam. It's a mockery of Christianity. To send out a tweet with the F word on Easter morning promising the murder of civilians and then saying praise be to Allah without explaining any of it, you are mocking me and every other Christian because we're Christians. We can't support that.
Although we don't celebrate pagan holidays.
Right.
Y'all hold on just a second. No, we don't celebrate pagan holidays. All the holidays are pagan. But he still has a point, though. And actually, as far as Christians, I'm not sure that that we're supposed to actually be Christians either.
Believers and following the way.
That's right.
They started calling them Christians in Antioch in the Bible, but that was not.
Go ahead.
But that was not what the believers called each other. It was people that were outside of the church that were calling the believers Christians. And it just, sooner or later, I guess it just held on, because that wasn't the original intent. It was believers of the way to follow the way.
Right.
The way of the Lord.
Right. And in Revelation, it talks about, I think it's in Revelation 6, it talks about that some that say they are Jews and are not.
Or the synagogue of Satan.
Right.
And then when it says synagogue of Satan, it also specifies that a church that is not of Christ doesn't have to be a Jewish church, but any church that is not of Christ is of Satan, a congregation of Satan.
Somebody's asking, what do we think about AI on there? We don't like it. And we think it's evil. And we pretty much refuse to use it.
It's the spirit of Satan. That's the only way Satan can pretend to be God, is to know everything people are saying and doing, is to put his ears and his eyes out there in the computer world, to watch and listen to everything we say as if he's God. That is Satan's spirit.
As y'all can tell, we're real people on here.
And right now, Trump's got a real problem because apparently he doesn't read the Bible, because he wouldn't put his hand on the Bible to swear in. So when a man doesn't read the Bible, he becomes insane, because that's the only thing, that's the only book, that's the only words that God spoke to us that keeps us sane. And the longer a man goes and he believes what he thinks is reality, and it's an imaginary world. And it's a sad thing, but that can happen to anyone who doesn't stand the word.
you are mocking me and every other Christian because we're Christians. We can't support that. That is evil. That is an intentional desecration of beauty and truth, which is the definition of evil. Maybe some did, but certainly the leaders of the American Christian churches, by and large, said absolutely nothing. And maybe because they said nothing, this accelerated. These are the same people who sort of didn't notice somehow that on Inauguration Day, the president did not take his oath of office with his hand on the Bible. His wife stood next to him holding it. I was about 15 feet away and saw it, but he did not put his hand on the Bible. And that should have been maybe a clue that we need to pause and think about, what is this? Why wouldn't you put your hand on the Bible? If you don't believe in the Bible, you think it's just a book, there's no cost to you to putting your hand on it, just kind of following the protocol, going along with the tradition. All presidents do it. Why aren't you doing it? And you're not doing it intentionally. You're choosing not to put your hand on the Bible when you take that oath. That's just not that you don't believe it's real, because if you didn't believe it was real, why would you care? You'd put on the costume and take it off. Doesn't matter. That's just, you know it is real and you're rejecting it intentionally. You know what you're doing and you're doing it anyway. But nobody asked questions about that either. It seemed kind of inappropriate, given the celebration that in progress, to ask, why wouldn't you put your hand on the Bible when you take the oath of office to lead our nation? But pretty much nobody did. I didn't. I'll admit that. I saw it and didn't say one word. Bothered me ever since. But right around January 4th, it became clear that maybe he didn't put his hand on the Bible because he affirmatively rejects what's inside that book. And what's inside that book are limits on human behavior. Because if there's one theme that spans all 66 books in the Christian Bible, it's that you are not God and you cannot assume his powers because you don't have them. You may convince yourself you have them, you may want them, you may have been promised them, but in the end, they're not yours and you'll never have them. And you can only destroy yourself and the people around you by pretending that you do. That is the consistent message that spans from Genesis to Revelation. And people who ignore that law are punished, just like people who ignore gravity or freezing temperatures are punished, because these are laws that were not created by people. They supersede people. But on January 4th, when the President of the United States told us he was stealing, that our country was stealing something that didn't belong to us, people should have piped up and said something, but they didn't. And that got us all the way to yesterday, which was Easter Sunday.
Why would Donald Trump refuse to touch the Bible during his inauguration? Why would Donald Trump refuse to profess if he's a Christian or not? Well, I mean, it's the same reason that we've been stating on this channel for the past 4 years, and it's because Donald Trump is the dark magician. Donald Trump was selected over 40 years ago to be the quote-unquote president of chaos, to lead the country into chaos. And he is doing exactly what he was selected to do. We've looked at the Illuminati card games that literally spoke to this and told us exactly who Donald Trump was well before he got here. Just a couple of days ago, we covered the quote-unquote Trump
magician of chaos, y'all.
Right. Yeah, we looked it up before on the MAGA, where it said that MAGA is actually his position with MAGA speaks very unkind of him, really, because it says that MAGA stands for the 5th degree highest priest in Satan's church.
That's right.
Not good, not good. And it's not just that he wouldn't put his hand on the Bible. The man might know that if he puts his hand on the Bible, he'll be held to what God says to him about it. Because God can come to you in your mind, in your dreams, and through other people.
That's right.
So he might fear the Bible. Because I have talked to men before that fear what it says. I don't want to know, they say. Because if I know, then I'm held accountable for it. But that's not the case. Whether you know it or not, in the end, we're all held accountable for what God said. Whether you read it or not. Whether you put your hand on it or not.
If you're a woman in
Y'all
your late
hold on just a second. I'm catching some of these ads here. Just a second. Here we go.
right now in LA, we are are seeing $8 a gallon gas.
Of course, gas prices in California are reaching $10 a gallon.
Does anyone enjoy driving anymore? Because gas is so expensive.
It's real. People out here taking pictures, they don't even believe it. $8, $8.21. You might as well get you a horse.
Gas prices have just hit $8 a gallon in many gas stations across the country. And if you think that's where it's going to stop, stick around. Because what's coming next is going to affect every single one of us, whether you drive a truck, a compact car, or a scooter.
Did you know that gas prices are $8.31 in Los Angeles a gallon? $8.31 a gallon. I about lost my mind when I saw the price go up to $3.19. If we saw it at $8, I know there'd be like a civil war. So let me know, is gas getting too expensive? What are you guys paying for gas?
Right now in LA, we are seeing $8 a gallon gas. And here's why we are not likely to see prices on a wide range of consumer goods go back down to their historic lows, why we should probably anticipate some sort of recession or stagflation, continued high prices, and why even if the war stops right now, consumers are going to feel the pain, I am told, for 6 months or a year. So I had a very interesting and dispiriting conversation with one of the world's greatest experts in supply chains, Nick Vyas from USC. So on the one hand, you have obviously the energy problem. At least 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas, LNG, goes through the Strait of Hormuz, 20% of the oil, we all know that at this point. But it's also the tankers, the ships, the vessels, thousands that are bottled up in the Persian Gulf, unable to get out. It causes a massive global supply chain issue. That means those ships can't meet their deadlines, taking on new cargo. That backs things up, and that is going to take, he says, even if the war stops today, that will take 6 months, maybe a year to unwind. The issue is, he says, demand remains high, supply goes down. That means prices rise. He says it's inevitable. Right now, he's forecasting about 40 basis points lower of global GDP. That is basically a recession. And the problem.
It's funny they say that, because, this looks like it's part of the chaos.
Right. Freemasons, they believe that chaos is a solution before there can be a better solution. Unlike God, he says that things have to work out right, not chaos first. God says that it works out right when you work into his word and you pray in his word.
Right.
It works out first right. So this chaos is just definitely backwards. The people are feeling it because it's not of God.
That's right. And here's another clip that we wanted to play for y'all. Y'all listen to this.
Joining us, founder and CEO of Independent Veterans of America and host of the Independent Americans podcast, Paul Rykoff. David French is still with us too. So, Paul, let's start with this Bondi news. Look, this is, of course, for many people, largely about Epstein. And it's an interesting sort of area because when you look at the recent polling, a lot of the moderate support and young male support that the president has been losing, they're kind of the exact demographics and groups of people who at one point had a lot of hope in this particular investigation, who at least said they cared deeply about harming children, justice for women who'd been abused. Now they've watched the last year unfold, and they've been very clear on their podcasts and elsewhere about their frustrations. So I'm curious how you read the tea leaves today with her firing.
I think a lot of people are done. And I think Trump's hearing that, and he's seeing it, and he's feeling it, especially from his base. Sean Ryan, the influential Navy SEAL podcaster, said, he's done. He said, I'm over it. I'm tired of the lies. Don't come knocking on my door. Don't come asking for my help. And I think a lot of people feel that way, and it's really a triad. It's Epstein. It's the terribly unpopular the situation with ICE, and now it's the Iran war. And those three things are now coming together with gas prices in a spike that's directly aligned at Trump. And I think he wants to stop the bleeding. He wants to change the narrative. He wants to get rid of Pam Bondi. But the problem with the Trump administration is if you remove her, it's just another person coming in her place. It's just like removing Kristi Noem and putting in Mark Wayne Muller, or removing the Ayatollah
That's
and putting
right.
in his son. I mean, it's the same kind of regime. It's going to be another loyal.
That's right. All they do is replace them. And something else, too, that we noticed, usually when you fire somebody, they get fired. These people are not getting fired. These people are getting moved to another position.
Right. Because
that's not getting fired.
That's because they're still loyal to him.
Right. Usually when you fire somebody, they're gone.
And it could be that he doesn't want a disgruntled employee that lost their job, because they can also tell the truth about what they see and what they know. And so that can protect that area by putting him in another position. And he could have thought he had to go to war because he seen he was losing all his base. And to try to bring things back together, and knowing that this is an agenda that Alfred Pike wrote about, the Third World War, that Christians and this fake Israel, that they're going to make Christians fight with the Muslims until we're exhausted. The Christians are exhausted with financially and physically and spiritually exhausted. That's what the goal is. And if he knows he's losing his base, he has to hurry up and do this. It might have been it wasn't supposed to be done this quick. I don't know.
Y'all, please be respectful on the channel. No cursing. So let's get into the Bible, because we're going to read about Judas. Judas is somebody that can be compared to Trump right now. Judas agrees to betray Jesus. Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went unto the chief priests, and said unto them, What will ye give me? And I will deliver him unto you. And they covenanted with him for 30 pieces of silver. And from that time he sought opportunity to betray him. The Passover meal. Now the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying unto him, Where wilt thou that we prepare for thee to eat the Passover? And he said, Go into the city to such a man, and say unto him, The Master saith, My time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples. And the disciples did as Jesus had appointed them, and they made ready the Passover. Now when the even was come, he sat down with the 12, and as they did eat, he said, Verily I say unto you, that one of you will betray me. And they were exceeding sorrowful, and began every one of them to say unto him, Lord, is it I? And he answered and said, He that dippeth his hand with me in the dish, the same shall betray me. The Son of Man goeth as it is written of him, but woe unto that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed.
Yes.
It had been good for that man if he had not been born. Then Judas, which betrayed him, answered and said, Master, is it I? He said unto him, Thou hast said. That's something.
Right. He knew that he was going to betray him. He knew who he was, and he was also the treasurer, the one who handled the money, and he was one of the 12. So you can profess to be a Christian, you can profess to be a believer, you can sell Bibles, and you can say you want the 10 Commandments in every school, and you can say that that men and women that are Christians have a lot of power. You can have all kind of rallies, but when it comes down, what do you really believe? What do you really believe? It's really a thing where it's showing up more now. And it says in the Bible that when someone is not a believer, that the righteous mourn. That when someone's not a believer that runs the country, the righteous will mourn. That's because that person's not following God. And everybody righteous is suffering. It kind of sounds like that. It shouldn't be the
That's
righteous
right.
are suffering. It should be that somebody, if they're righteous and they're following God, that everyone works together to help one another, not turn against everyone. Take away their. I could name some things: daycare, Medicaid,
Medicaid.
Medicare, and I don't want to say he'd do it, but he said he wouldn't touch it. But to me, it was right on the tip of his tongue because he said he could only support the military, and that leaves out Social Security and disability. Military does not include Social Security and disability. So, it's really a sad thing to see it all fall apart and turn against everyone and just reach out for the military.
And we are paying attention to the chat. But we choose not to answer rudeness.
You have to remember the conversation, is supposed to be edifying, not cut down. And we're not trying to cut him down. We're only telling you what
Right.
everybody's experiencing.
Right. And there's a
Every,
lot of people waking up to it.
yeah, it's a thing where everybody's going to have to face up to this. Everyone's going to have to face up to the decision of who's running things and what they're allowing, what they call left and right, what they're allowing.
Well, I think that's all we have to share with y'all today. Until next time, 2 Lamps Last Hour Bible.